welcome everyone to the webinar today. We are talking about virtual events and the walkthrough, the complete experience on E2M Live platform. And with me today, I have Claire Bowley. She is the Managing Director of Dynamic Events and Conferences. Welcome, Claire, to the webinar. Thank you for joining us. With me, I also have Sid and Anirban. Sid, as you guys have already seen him on the previous webinar, Sid is the CEO of Webspiders. He's joining us as the product director of E2M Live. And we also have Anirban, who is the content lead, leading marketing efforts for E2M Live. Thank you, Anirban and Sid, and thanks, Claire, for joining in. Good morning to all the audiences joining in from UK. Good afternoon to all the audiences in India, and very good evening to people joining in from Singapore. Welcome you all on the webinar today. So Sid and Claire, quick question for both of you, just to get the ball rolling. Today we are talking about virtual events, and we're going to definitely give a walkthrough to all of our attendees today. And just a quick note for the attendees who've joined in today. This is a 30 minutes to 40 or maybe an hour webinar leading up to, it's divided into sessions. So the first session would have a panel discussion. It's a moderated panel discussion, which would be followed up with a 15 to 20 minutes of presentation by us on E2M On Air. And it would be followed up with a roundtable session that would also be moderated, and we will have a Q&A right on the roundtable. So that's the complete format for an hour. And just to get it rolling, Sid and Claire, quick question for you both. This pandemic is showing the businesses and communities that they're really missing events, right? Communities or I should say that the event organizers as a whole, they are missing events. They're missing going to in-person events. They're missing organizing events. So they're missing invites to events. What kind of feedback are you both getting from your respective clients? What is the feedback? What is the quick questions that you get from them? What is the type of reaction that you're getting from them in terms of missing on events? Because in the current scenario, most of the events are either cancelled or postponed. So what is the reaction that you see from your customers?
Shall I kick off? Okay. So we do a lot of work with networks. So critically, they have to meet and build relationships and work together. So obviously, this has had a massive effect on those kind of organisations. So I think what we're seeing is initially everybody just used Zoom a lot because it was very easy, it was very familiar to people, and it was kind of there, not expensive. You know, they kind of had the facilities ready, so people were able to just jump in webinars. But I think what we're beginning to see is that people are getting a bit zoomed out, and you know, they're on these calls all day with their colleagues, their clients. So really now, when we're realising that we're not getting back to life anytime soon, I think people are starting to really see the value of platforms like yours, where they can get an interactive experience, they can have a lot of delegate engagement, and you know, they can bring in their sponsors and their stakeholders, and they can, you know, give them a profile on the platform as well.
Absolutely. Claire, I also think this is the new normal. This is going to be, like we said rightly, it's going to continue for the coming months. And we understand as being on the forefront of this from an event perspective, this is the new normal. So we are also, I think, in the current scenario is we're preparing ourselves, or maybe if we have not prepared ourselves, we have to. I mean, there's absolutely no way of not going virtual, right? Sid, on that note, quick question to you. What is the reaction you are getting from your existing customers? Because you've been in the forefront of events. You've been doing events for 9+ years. So, and being a speaker as well as an attendee or an exhibitor at various events worldwide, I'm sure you've had various experiences. So now that you're not going to events, now that your events are not happening, your existing customers, what is their reaction? If you could tell us.
Yeah, thanks, Aditi. Thanks for coordinating this. So I think they're pleasantly surprised. Most customers who get into a virtual event, they're really positively surprised of how productive these events are, and they sort of they're achieving almost the same or even higher goals from engagement perspective. I think, of course, the only thing they miss is the free food and the free drinks, and the travel. And checking into nice hotels and you know, those kind of things. But other than that, uh, for the most part, the way we are seeing it is that it's most likely to be a digital twin moving forward. You're going to have this concept where every event will have its digital twin, and people can switch back and forth in real time, or dedicate to one format entirely. I think that's I think in April and May people are being forced, and now based on the fact that almost all our customers are having repeat events digitally, is the fact that they're seeing the productivity. I mean, in fact, it's more. And because we have this ability, for example, for the trade shows to exchange business cards. So if you see, they're seeing that in terms of number of leads and number of appointments or meetings, it's far more, than the traditional. Sometimes up to 2x more. So if you're getting 70 business cards, they're getting 200 business cards. They're getting far more meetings out of the platform. And so it's a cultural change. I think it's a habit. People never thought they would get used to it. It's a habit where they have been forced into initially, and now they're seeing that it's like the Netflix experience, right? If you said 10 years ago that no more movie halls, no more theaters, just watch a movie at home on your computer, it's like if you would say, well, are you crazy? Why should I watch a movie at home and on my laptop? But I think now to go to a movie hall, we think, oh my God, that's really an effort to go and go to a movie hall. I think it's a similar transition. Yeah.
Anirban, a quick question for you. I think now that people are going virtual, and you've been doing the marketing, you've been taking care of the marketing efforts for in-person events, right? Now that you have to rebrand your strategy to virtual, what sort of advantages or disadvantages or feedback or reactions do you have on this?
Uh, Initially, there's a bit of a grudging acceptance. Initially, there's this whole thing of that this is the only way forward. So, I mean, essentially, it wasn't a very okay. This will work. So people were mostly of the opinion that let's do this and see what happens. But I think that what has happened is I actually like that Netflix and movie theater analogy, because what happened is that after some people really realized that it's not just replacement. I mean, uh, having virtual events has its own set of advantages that doesn't really. I mean, obviously, when we go back after this, there will be in-person events again. But I think that virtual is here to stay because of the number of advantages that virtual events have. I mean, webinar. We've been having webinars for years and years and years, and webinars are a kind of a mini virtual event. But and what we are doing right now, this session, and then a round table, and then the Q&A, and obviously a virtual event can be even bigger with entertainment and stuff like that. So there are people who can participate in the event for in ways that they could not in-person events. So I think the what has changed is that people are, or a lot of our clients are, even 3 months ago we had to convince them as to, look, there is no other way. This is what needs to be done. And even if we didn't have to convince them, the opinion was mostly, okay, let's do this. I mean, what can we do? There's now a more palpable excitement about this, a more interest about this, and there's that perspective of, okay, how can we take this further? How can we go beyond? So, for example, I mean, if we had an event, I mean, what we are doing today is a mini event. It's not just a webinar. And in no event, live in-person event in the world, could we have possibly had Claire on a day's notice. Or we could have flown her in, but we have her in the event right now. So, yeah, this comes with its own benefits.
Yeah.
Absolutely, agreed on 100%. Because I'm very sure, Claire, it would be very difficult if we would have just planned this at the last hour, and getting all of us together. It's always possible when you are going virtual. I think it's the new normal, like I said. So, absolutely. And Another question for Claire and Sid both, I would say, is virtual events is starting out as an alternative, as we can all see, to in-person events. Now, do you see your clients talking about the hybrid model, or how's their adoption to the hybrid model as of now? I mean, because the hybrid model is here to stay, what do you see them talking about it? Claire?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be necessary into next year. And we're actually seeing a lot of clients who are building a virtual event strategy. So where previously they might have brought people in to maybe have meetings that are attached to conferences, now they're not doing that anymore. So they're going to be having those events done virtually. And then maybe the bigger conferences where it's really important for them that people are meeting face to face, they'll still be running those, but they will be, having a hybrid element to that, because what people are finding, of course, is that the engagement that you get from a virtual conference is absolutely enormous, and the reach they get deeper into their own teams of staff, into their clients, into their member firms, all of those things is just, unprecedented, really. And I think it's making a big difference to businesses being able to operate more effectively. And therefore, I can't see virtual conferences are ever going to go. They're going to be very much a part of the mix.
Right. I think that's a very good way of looking at it. Absolutely. Sid, I'm sure you would have some notes on that front too, because
I
I'm
would
sure you are getting a lot of inquiries for the hybrid model. And when we go hybrid, what would be your take on going hybrid? Because that's here to stay. What would you
Yeah, no,
advise your clients?
I would echo Claire absolutely. I mean, the fact that as a long-term event junkie, more like an exhibitor and attendee, I probably attend, anywhere from 12 to 15 events a year. Uh, and these are business events. Then there are music festivals and all that. That's separate. I think at one point as an exhibitor, we've often thought, oh, this is a bad habit. It costs too much money, and out of 10 shows, you don't know how many leads you'll get. It's expensive. And I think at no point was virtual a consideration before 2000. I would say in 2018. It was a niche sort of a sector where certain kinds of comedy shows or certain kinds of youth festivals, they were looking at going virtual, but not this. And as I said, right now, right now our order books for virtual is absolutely, that's full, in the sense that we were going back to back, week by week, making sure events are done to perfection. uh, we are just beginning to get the hybrid note, and beginning as in people are not sure when this will get over, right? So we have already, in fact, right now as I speak, we have two events where we have the hybrid model or the module already added to the work order, in the sense that the RTMP services are enabled and they can stream their cameras uh, to the live service. So one of these boxes would actually be the live event from the camera. But importantly, they would use our app. One big change that happened, Aditi and Claire, was the fact that before March, 100% of our business was around mobile apps, because
Yes.
in terms of event. And in April, 100% was on desktop, no mobile apps. So they were in fact not when they saw a website, they used to say, "Hey, why do I see so many mobile app screenshots? Are you guys not on desktop?" It was actually a negative to have a mobile app, because they said, "Why would you need a mobile app at home or if wherever you are fixed?" And so that was a big difference.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons, Claire, I was talking to you about, is why we had to change the stack. Because earlier our desktop responsive was more like a backup used for 2% of the attendees, like probably when they're sitting at their desk on lunch or on breakfast or something like that. Then they would use it maybe to register, or maybe some Q&A or survey, that's all. But the fact that you're in an event means you're mobile. You don't need your desktop. Your laptop is tucked away. Your iPad is tucked away. You're not using it.
Yeah.
So for sure, the fact that we came from that world, we've got into this. whenever hybrids do start, I think it'll be a good mix where the people at home or people remote, they would say, well, desktop is important for me, but people at the event, they would want the same experience on their mobile apps, which means from
Yeah.
polling, from Q&A, from trivia to games to the expo floor to the roundtables. Because Claire, you know, being in this industry for so long, especially if you're in a big event like South by Southwest or some of these big events, you really want to attend so many things, and you just physically cannot do that because they have 3, 4, 5, sometimes a dozen tracks or even more at the same time. Most of the times you can barely walk to cover the entire expo floor. And and as being an exhibitor and being a visitor, I can see the dynamic of how some booth reps are eagerly waiting for somebody to come in, and if you're watching, then it's sort of a decision: should I go and approach them, whether they can help them? And as attendees, you want to say, okay, hold on, don't I cannot talk to 500 exhibitors today, so let me come to you if I need something. And we see the reverse dynamic in very large booths. So you go to a Fortune 100 companies booth, which has like $1 million booth, and there's a bar, there's a lounge, there is all kinds of things, and there you struggle to find anybody to talk to if you're not known, if you're not an existing customer. um, you know you walk in and people are busy, or you'll just speak to somebody like some show assistant who's been hired for the booth. That's it. So yeah, so I think Aditi, in a nutshell, uh, people never thought that virtual would be so useful. Um, and and whenever it picks up, we've already seen people adding the virtual component to events that are going to happen in 2021 fall. So for example, we have one on 2021 September. These are government events. And then we have one 2021 further in November. They already have, they're assuming they'll have the main in principle in person and the add-on for virtual. So
Yeah,
so
we're
yeah.
seeing quite a bit. Yeah, and also I think nobody knows how this is going to go. We all hope that there's going to be a vaccine. We all hope that that's going to be able to be rolled out and be effective. But nobody really knows. So to have that plan be in place at the minute, I just think is absolutely vital, really.
Yeah. And strange, I mean, and coincidentally enough, it's UK at the moment, Oxford University, which is leading the race for the vaccine. I don't know if you read
Yeah.
about Sarah Gilbert.
Yeah.
She's become like a mini icon, sort of a celebrity almost in the circles. And I think there are 5 countries at the moment who are racing to get the vaccine. Yeah, UK, India, US, a couple more. So, yeah.
I think the other thing as well, which we haven't touched on here, is climate change. And we were having a lot of discussions with clients and delegates around, the viability of flying everybody to one place. And it's not just the flights. You've got all of the issues, the green issues around, hotel space, food wastage, all of those kind of things. And so, of course, using a virtual platform eliminates so much, if not all of that, almost. So live events won't go, I don't think. They're really important. You need that human interaction. But I think in order to get much more traction from a wider audience, then it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you don't need any additional infrastructure other than a vendor like ourselves. You don't need any special infrastructure. You already have the camera team. You already have a fast internet connection, and that's all you need to make it virtual. So you don't really need to invest in any significant new, infrastructure at the event site, which is a big plus.
Although banging the drum for the event agency side, I would say that I think there's a great value in working with a partner like us, because obviously, we are used to helping people translate everything onto a virtual platform and making sure that you still get, the same engagement, the same excitement around it. And I think that is a really big part of the whole process, actually.
Sure. That's great. Yeah. Does that help, Aditi?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Claire and Anirban. Thank you so much. Yes. So I think I have another question related to what Anirban and you said. You said that webinars, it's not just webinars that are happening. Even a webinar right now is a virtual event, and it's a large-scale event almost. So on that note, Anirban, my question to you and Sid, of course, is any thoughts on how these webinars are different to virtual events? What exactly are the absolute large, I would say, large differentiating factors? What do you think as webinars? Because webinars post the lockdown started, because of the scenario currently. We're doing a lot of webinars ourselves. But then webinars is what started the moment this entire pandemic shift up. So what do you see as a marketer? When you describe a webinar or when you say virtual event, what is it that differs really? What is it that differs on the larger scale?
So basically, actually we are calling this what we are doing right now a virtual event for a very specific reason, and we wanted to differentiate that aspect of what a webinar is from what a virtual event is. Uh, the core difference is that a webinar is and webinars are important for marketers. Don't get me wrong. They're important. They're fast. They get things. It's quick. But a webinar is a session. It's something you do while you have your lunch, or in between you checking mails, or maybe in the evening right before you step out of office. An event is an experience. So an event, an in-person event is something that you dedicate your time to for maybe a day or a significant chunk of your day or maybe a couple of days. And a virtual event is no different. A virtual event is not, a webinar is a session and then you're done. You learn something and you're done. A virtual event is where you virtually go, you listen, you attend multiple sessions, you choose your track, which track you want to follow, you listen to various industry experts. I'm talking about corporate events. Then you browse around in the lounge, you dip into some of the exhibitor booths, you see what their offerings are, you talk to the exhibitors, then you attend a breakout session or a round table, you talk to 6 7 people who have a common interest, you make new connections, which I believe that more than just attending the sessions, the biggest reason for people to go to events is to network, is to talk to other people, is to find connections. And that is where webinars, that's not the format. The webinars do not allow you to network. So that is the biggest difference maker. But there are so many differences, big and small. Like I said, it's a webinar is probably a part of a virtual event experience. A webinar is equivalent to a session, but a virtual event is one session, more sessions, meetings, discussions, chats, learnings, testing new products. So it's apples and oranges really, or rather an apple and a bushel of apples.
So how do you think your customers who are going virtual instead of having a webinar? Because like Anirban just now said, you cannot really have that interactive, that networking ability in
Yeah.
webinars. But in virtual events, that's something you can do. So I think if you can give us your 2 bits on how that's possible, how can you network or how can attendees leverage networking while they are on virtual events as compared to webinars?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll also look forward to Claire's comment on that, because that's one question we receive
Absolutely.
sometimes.
I was just coming
That
to Claire
yeah.
as well. So yeah, if
So
both you and Claire can give us your
yeah.
bits. Yeah.
So it's just the objective, Aditi. It's just the objective. So I think let's go back one step further. What's the difference between a
I think, Sid, can you hear us? Claire, do you want to take that question up while Sid just reconfirms?
Yes, sure. I think
And I'll tell you why I'm asking you, Claire, because you guys do a lot of events throughout the year, a lot, and these are different conferences in different exotic locations as well. Bespoke events, right?
yeah,
I mean, before the
yeah.
pandemic, so you guys are very much right in the forefront of things. So, do you generally do a lot of webinars too, or your clients do they want a lot of webinars? And how do you generally now people who are asking for webinars, how do you push them towards the virtual event side of it?
Yeah, so I think this kind of goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. I think there's a lot of people that started off doing webinars on Zoom and that kind of thing because it was very accessible. I think what people are finding, it doesn't have the capability that a virtual platform does. You know, this is like a whole environment. It's just so much more. And you guys are particularly interesting because you have everything on here. You know, you can white label the URL, you can have your registration, you can have your exhibition stands that look like stands, you can go into your lobby and it feels like a lobby. You know, there's a lot in here that kind of gives you that environment, which I really love actually. And I think when we hit this pandemic, me and my team sat down and said, right, okay, what we have to really think about here is what is the essence of an event. And for us, it's content, it's connections, and it's community. And that's what you have on a live event, effectively. So we've been really working on how you can translate that into a virtual space. And, you know, you can't do that on a webinar. You can bring people in to an extent, you know, you can do polling, you can do some chatting, that kind of thing. But with this, you guys have got your roundtables. You know, there's just so many, and your business networking, actually, your speed dating. There's just so many opportunities for people to actually be able to talk to each other, you know, do business, share opportunities, share best practice, all of those things that you just don't get on, you know, just a webinar situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I tripped on my Wi-Fi link. I was trying to switch and I switched it off by mistake.
Okay, this is the equivalent of the speaker dropping his notes on stage.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, what Claire said, absolutely.
Okay, I think Sid is maybe having some issues with his network, with his internet
Sorry, can
connection.
you hear
So,
me? No?
Aditi, why don't we move on, and once Sid comes in, we'll tell him to address this question.
Absolutely. I think he came back briefly. I think I could hear him briefly, but yeah. Let's move on to the other
And
question.
he's
Hi,
here.
Sid. I see you back.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Can you hear us? Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to adjust the volume and I switched off the Wi-Fi by mistake. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, what Claire is saying, absolutely. I think the fact that you know the couple of things that a webinar is one of the formats within a virtual event, and some of our events have gone on for 3 days, right? So that's one, and I'll be sharing a session just after this very quickly to show some real differences. And what we've seen, the roundtables, you know, if there's one thing that's led our way is absolutely the roundtables. You know, it's such a massive hit. I mean, I remember, if you remember, Aditi, till 10 p.m. we did this BNI event, and till 10 p.m. they just didn't leave the roundtables. The events finished at 5 p.m. and people were still on the roundtables, discussing, sharing, presenting to each other. So that was huge. Of course, the expo floor is again, you know, such a respite from walking all those things, because you know, the traditional format of walking down the aisle, collecting brochures, you know, having this big bunch of brochures and you toss them in the bin when you reach home, or and then the fact that you exchange your business card and you rarely expect somebody to follow up on time, and when you follow up, you may not get a response. You know, so for a budget, for a person who holds the budget and who is investing, say, $30,000 on a booth, you know, for him, the visibility of what his dollars do, how many meetings that have happened, you know, all these things is just of course, webinar is one of the format, but it just scales up from there.
Thanks, Sid. Thanks for that. Because you guys are doing a lot of webinars, and I'm sure Claire, like she said rightly, we have a combination of both. And for us as E2M guys, we have the ability to have the networking feature within events. So for us, it's like leveraging the event platform for both webinars and large scale events directly in the virtual. Yeah, absolutely. So that brings me to my next question because it's got to do with events largely. So we've all seen as event organizers or attendees or exhibitors that entertainment plays a very large part of what we do at events, right? I mean, it's always been part of events, whether that's through in-session jam sessions, or you have these breakout to conference rooms, or you have maybe a DJ night or something like that. So entertainment plays a very big part when you go to in-person events. So when you're bringing your customers virtual to the virtual forefront, what is it that you can do in terms of entertainment? Because can this be brought to the virtual world? If yes, how? And how can that be plugged into your audience view? Can they see it? Can they, almost have a in-person experience on the virtual platform by maybe being part of a jamming session or a DJ night? Is that possible? Any thoughts? Claire, any thoughts from your end?
Gosh, there is so much entertainment out there that I think you can translate really well onto a virtual platform. What I think is really important is understanding the audience, understanding what you're trying to get out of that entertainment, and really looking at what the options are to achieve those objectives. But I'm seeing people doing such amazing things. There's they're holding parties, they're having DJs, they're having cooking sessions where they get sent out the shopping list to people. They go and buy the ingredients, and then they'll do a cooking session. And then, especially if you've got something like round tables, you can actually sit and chat and, eat with each other. People are sending out wine kits so they can do wine tasting. And then, actually, I know we're all a bit, we've done quizzes with our families for weeks on end. But, I still think that sometimes things like that are quite fun, especially if you can design it around the company or the team that's on the platform. I think people really like that kind of thing. And also the other thing we're seeing is a lot of people have skills like they can play an instrument, or they can sing, or they have something that they're very good at. And I think also people are enjoying that within companies, is seeing what their colleagues are able to do, maybe putting a band together and playing virtually and having a party with that. So yeah, there's just some amazing creative ideas. And I think also there's a lot of charitable options as well. So, packing, you guys did that breast cancer event where you raised just, millions of dollars. So I think there's also a lot of that kind of thing that's happening on the platforms. And that's great because that brings a community together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to add on to that, Aditi, I think the entertainment piece is one very important piece when an event feels like an event, because and at the moment, most artists, the fact is, artists globally have come upon hard times, and they've had to adopt different means. Whether you are at Broadway or you're in the West End, or whether you're a singer or dancer, their options are limited at the moment. So you can see that even places like Airbnb, for example, have opened an entire section on online experiences, and something similar to what Claire you mentioned, right? From cooking to music to magic shows to all kinds of formats. And I think if again you put it right on that it depends on the kind of audience you have. But for example, if you're doing an employee town hall, or if you're entertaining customers, then it can be, for example, pre-recorded as well. So there are a lot of destinations where you can license pre-recorded content, and our platform has the ability to stream it like a live content, which means it feels that it's just happening right then, and you can license it and you can use it, and it all depends on the budget. And if you have a larger budget, then you can have some live performers, including things like we've had mentalists. There's one guy. So we actually have we're actually building up a directory because a lot of our customers are asking for references of artists. And of course, we are not in that business. So we are building up a directory and at the moment referring them. And when it becomes larger, we'll probably make it available on our website where depending on what's the budget and what kind of entertainment they're looking at, they can actually license and contact them and get a gig right there. It definitely adds. And the fact is, what we've seen, Aditi, is that during many of these events, first we thought that people will get tired and they'll just do an event for 2 hours or 3 hours. Nobody can sit on their laptop or thing for more than a few hours. But the trend that we are seeing is that they are bookmarking the sessions that's important to them. So they know that, okay, they'll attend this keynote, they're going to come back at 2 o'clock for this, they're going to come back at 5 o'clock for the virtual cocktail hour, they're going to get their own drink, and so it's not like they're sitting across the entire day. They're hopping in and out. And that's again another large difference between how an event works and how a webinar works, which is a webinar is very transactional, 1 hour, done and you're gone. Attendees don't know who the other attendees are. You're rarely entertained, you learn something and you're off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a whole big industry now which is already started in terms of these online entertainers or performers. And in fact, I'll be very keen to start sharing a free of cost directory service, because we've already given business. We give business routinely to DJ. So we're having the DJ nights usually after the cocktail hour. So we're having DJ night, and some of them are pretty good. They're absolutely fantastic. The quality of the music they're producing and things like that.
And I think that's great, Sid. We all had quite a lot of challenges, over this last few months. And I think, as you say, the entertainment industry has been massively hit. And I think if you can recommend people and you can help those people out there to get some work, at this time, then that's absolutely fantastic. I think we all need to be helping each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, Sid, you also had recent events on the platform, on the E2M platform, wherein you had that entertainment part plugged in as simulated live, I think.
Yeah. I'll cover that in a small. So I'll do a 15-minute quick tips.
So maybe when you're showing the platform, you can maybe show the audience how that worked, because I think that was quite interesting to plug that in as part of simulated live, because on demand.
And what we're doing as well is that it can also work almost like a tele, in the sense that if your users are not inclined, they don't need to click buttons. It's like the one show finishes and the other show starts, and it just follows each other. So in some cases where people may not be technologically very, very, the same as, say, a person who's very strong in knowing what to do, they just sit. For them, it's just like watching a TV show, and it just moves from webinar to roundtables to a music night, back to another session. It just keeps going on. So we are having that auto flow as well, released next month, where you can put your agenda and mark as auto flow, and just moves from one place to another. Even small things, Claire, like for example, having we of course like to have Aditi in the panel, but say Aditi is an MC or she's an introducer and she wants to just introduce and not be seen. So we are having those features where you can introduce and go off and come back, introduce someone else and go off the screen and come back.
That's great.
So there's some
brilliant. It's a good way to go with this, I think.
Yeah. So these are actually all inbound requests that we've been getting. We have over 500 feature in our backlog, and we said, well, we really need to know what's important for next quarter. We cannot potentially develop 500 things at the same time. So okay. So So how are we doing with time, Aditi?
I think we have another 5 minutes on the panel, Sid, and then we can go on to the presentation. Attendees, for you can just drop your questions to us in the Q&A. Use the panel on the right side for Q&A. You can chat and share your feedback, insights, and ask us questions. We'll take it up. So a quick question now for Claire, mainly. And then I would ask you guys as well. Claire, do you see the events industry impacted any more differently than other countries? Is there a cultural standpoint? I'm talking from a cultural standpoint. Are virtual events being well received in UK? Do you see they are behaving differently, or have they been impacted differently than the other places? What's the reaction?
Um, well, we our live conferences are global, but we tend to work with UK head offices. And actually, at the minute with virtual events, we're pretty much working with UK clients. So I can't really comment on what's happening with other countries. I know that it's going down very well in the UK. We're getting a lot of traction, a lot of inquiries, a lot of interest from people just really, wanting to understand what's out there and how we can make that work for them. So yeah, I think it's becoming very popular.
That's great.
Sid, for you, I'm sure there are a lot of inquiries coming in from that region. So what's your reaction to that?
So I think again, we are of course just one small cog in the wheel. I don't think people realize that the events industry is larger than the advertising industry globally. The advertising industry did about 600 billion in revenues, and that includes the digital revenues like the Google and Facebook, but also includes like newspaper, radio. All combined is about 600 billion-ish dollars, and this is as per eMarketer. And if you see that same publisher, you will see that the events industry is actually 650 billion, and that includes the entire spend, whether it's catering or hotels, technology, etc. So events is of course a big industry, but we are seeing a fair share. Of course, US is leading for us at the moment in terms of just the number of events we are doing, and that could just be symbolic of the size of the country. I'm just, the UK is doing fairly okay. So we have right now two events which are going to go live in the UK. And there's a steady pipeline. So I would say that UK is definitely catching up. And bear in mind that this is something we launched just a few months ago. So we are building all these relationships, and then of course Singapore. But Singapore, I think Singapore itself is not reflective because Singapore is like a hub, right, for a lot of the other companies. So sometimes the event might be managed in Singapore, but may have originated in another country. And finally, India, where we have, our engineering staff is also doing well. And when we are finding that we didn't even know because we are not selling in South Asia earlier, and it's actually doing. We did the BNI event, and right now we have a very good pipeline for India as well. So I would say it's almost the four regions where we work. Yeah, Singapore, India, UK, US. I mean, US is of course leading by a margin, but I think if you took all the other countries together, then they are similar to the US. I would say US, to give you numbers, Aditi, is 50% US and 50% Asia and UK combined. We're not doing much in Europe right now, but I don't know. So Claire, one question for you. Do you refer any more to UK being in Europe or no? Sorry if it's a cheeky question.
Political. Yeah,
Sorry?
that's so political.
Okay. Okay.
Here, and I think everybody is finding the whole idea of us leaving quite hard, particularly in the current circumstances. It's yet another dimension to all of the issues that we're all facing here. So yeah, probably not a great discussion to get into. It's very political.
Sorry, yeah, because whenever I say European earlier, I used to include the entire thing, and now you have to say UK and the Europe. So, but yeah, we have a great. We've been working in UK since 2001, and I've actually lived in the Solihull. If you're familiar with the Midlands, I've actually had an apartment there. I'm quite familiar with the culture and the business, mostly the business culture, I would say. Yeah. So it's great. Okay.
We actually have a very interesting point coming up from the audience. I think Suman from the audience says that maybe after a few months it would be odd to go to any physical event. In a few months it may be odd to even be at physical events.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of people who are just really desperate to get back to those face-to-face events. And I mean, to the extent that one of our clients is even thinking about just doing a very last-minute, dash to Europe, if they can do it, because their network is so keen to see each other face-to-face. But like we said earlier, I think probably if that happens, there'll be a hybrid element to it.
Yeah.
So, Sid and Claire, I have a question coming up here. It's from Chetna. She says, we need to know more about the best practices to hold online and virtual events. So, Claire, do you want to take that question up?
That is such a massive subject, and I suppose that's why I say it's great to be able to partner with an event agency, because we can really help define what your objectives are and get that translated into that virtual space. So, I mean, I don't think there are best practices, obviously, and I think probably one of those is making sure that your audience is really, really engaged. That they're not just passively sitting there, they're part of the whole process. And I think that's incredibly important. And so a platform like this can really help with that, because there's so many ways in which you can get your delegates to engage. I would also say that, I don't know, there's a bit of a divided opinion on whether you should pre-record presentations or whether you should have them live. And I'm not quite sure which way I come down, actually. I think it really very much depends on the event. There's obviously a huge safety aspect about everything being pre-recorded, because then you take a huge element of risk out of the whole thing. And, as an event organizer, I think taking risk out is good. But on the other hand, I think the more you can make this feel like a live event that's happening right here, right now, that your delegates are taking part in, that there's nothing that beats that. Maybe having something that's a bit of a hybrid to that is having pre-recorded presentations, but having your speakers on live for Q&A. That could be a way to go. The only thing I would say is that I do really love it when you get a speaker who engages so much with their audience that, they're pushing polls out, they're asking questions, they're really making that a very interactive experience for their audience. And then obviously they have to be live, really.
So, Aditi, I think what I'll do is, since we have 10 minutes for our first session, I'll just share to complete that question. It's a good segue. And I'll sort of skip through, and what we make is make it available for everybody.
So I think let's give Sid a moment to come back there, and thank you so much. Those were great insights, and I'm sure that answers Chetna's questions. Chetna, feel free to connect with us, and we'll take it offline. And if you need any advice from Claire or us, we will be happy to share it. Thank you, Claire.
I think Sid's stuck in his cabling.
He probably tried to change the volume again.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. So, Aditi, can you see my screen?
Not yet, sir. I don't think it's shared yet.
Okay.
Sir, we
How
can see your
about now?
screen now. Yeah, yeah.
Can you
We
see
can
my
see your
screen,
screen.
Aditi?
Yes, we can see your screen now.
All right. Sorry. So essentially, what we'll share with you is, our experience in terms of what are the. Let me zoom it a little bit more, or rather present it. Yeah. So we'll go through all the. So of course, this is what you're. One key that you see is, as Zoom, you have to try and avoid having downloads. So as you can not require any download, it can, and that's one of consideration, in terms of having ability uh, to show. So this one is pretty well understood. So just 10 minutes or so, I'll breeze on. Now this is something what we've seen is actually absolute, theater. This sets it apart. Totally makes it worth. I would encourage everybody, even to come and join us at one of the round. So I think all of us here will spend after this on the round, and we would encourage the audience to and talk, have any questions, change the round tables if they. And I'll do the same, and then I real perspective. And this has been used in different ways. There's one publisher where they sold tables as sponsors. We had one person. They had Kim Kardashian, for example, who was one of these round tables. They were selling 4 seats on, and that would be, it would be extremely expensive. But then you would get with talking to her beauty tips. Similarly, we are talking. We've had sessions where people in their own, imagine having people like say Warren Buffett, of speaking to him, small group, one-on-one, changes things significantly. Where the people are assigned one-to-one, and at the same time, the the CEO, for example, he's moving from one table to another. So just to check, you can, 1 second. Sorry, just a second. Yeah. So this is something, I think it's almost an essential service when you come to a virtual event. This is just one of the. This guy is a very famous Bollywood actor, more like the villain, and this is just a screenshot from there. Again, when it comes to your expo, what we've seen, what gets traction is when you have a visual expo rather than just a listing. There are a lot of people who just list out. So this has been really useful. Just audio check. Are you guys something. Are you guys able to hear me, Aditi?
There was a bit of
Clear?
an audio issue actually. So, but I
Okay.
refreshed the page and it fixed pretty much everything.
Right.
So if
Okay.
anybody has any
Okay.
audio issues,
Good.
just refresh the page.
Yeah. So this is a good example of what can happen in an online event. So I upgraded my Mac OS, having some issues since then, but yeah. Now this is also a very common way of showing, the simulated live. So a lot of the people are using pre-recorded videos, and sometimes it might be uh, just one or two, days ago, and they are scheduling it. They're also simultaneously casting it in YouTube and Facebook Live. So that's really important there. This is an example what we had done, and we do similar examples where this is a pre-recorded video being streamed live, but what you have is you actually have a text to donate at the bottom. That's where people can donate their or pledge their donation at this number, and the donations and the messages come right over here. So this was sort of syncing with what was on the video on top. And what you see here is the same thing, which is flipped to a photo wall. So these were essentially selfies being sent by the attendees, and this was being switched with the text to pledge, some with this versus that. So this again was streamed as live, and it used the same. What's really important about here is that the technology has to be really robust. So for example, using off the shelf streaming technology, what we've seen is okay when you have few dozens or few hundreds of users in even. But for example, when you start getting into the 400-500 user mark, you really need a robust. So the kind of streaming partner we have, for example, Elemental, is actually the same vendor that is used by Australian and New Zealand broadcast agency. So the quality is great, and it just works when you talk about that. And of course, the difference is that being a live event, it is in sync. So if you get into the video 10 minutes later, then it's not like a video on demand where you can see it from the beginning. So it's streamed as live. Again, setting up a contextual lobby, you saw a very quick lobby today, but these are examples of contextual lobbies that you can have. Some of our lobby designs come out of the product right away, but in some cases you can get it designed like this as a custom lobby. And again, here, one of the things where I can also share in terms of, let me take you to an exhibit hall. So this is the actual exhibit hall, and I encourage you to view it. So this is what we have an embedded video right here, right away. So other than just simply watching the video or seeing the company profile, you can actually go ahead and enter into video conversation. So this is a very important tip that we realized, that you must enable a video room in the exhibitor booth. I'm going a little fast, but we'll share all of these tips to you. Another very important thing here is the ability to request for callback. Especially for large expos, what we find is that people they might find booths busy, or they may not have the time, or the expo staff may not have the time, and so the ability to schedule a specific meeting versus simply having the ability to drop a business card is really important, because what you want is to move the exhibitor's investment from getting a business card to a meeting, and that's what this enables. So this request callback has been really, really useful. And again, creating a personalized agenda, Claire, I briefly discussed this, the fact that you may not, for a 3-day event, you cannot potentially be just sitting on the screen for 3 days. So you need to bookmark some things, you need to be assigned some sessions, you could be having a one-on-one meetings. So all of those need to come into your own personal agenda. So having the personal agenda concept has been really useful in the event strategy that we've seen over the last quarter. And then again, a match to that is the ability to have a mobile app with that, because you need to have a mobile app because it reminds you. So you're off to lunch, you're off for a run, or you're away, and your session comes in, or your bookmarked agenda comes in. You need to make sure that you can access that right away from your phone as well as see your agenda. So both having your personal agenda and having it accessible via the phone is really important. At a minimum, if you don't want to invest in the mobile app, you can still have them download it to the calendar so that your local calendar gives you the alert. And of course, using mobile apps. Now, of course, we noticed that when people started using the desktop, they said, why would I need a mobile app? But if your event is going to go beyond a few hours, then the mobile app is definitely something that's necessary. And it's probably the same example that you see from your Netflix experience, right? You might be watching on your laptop, you might go onto your Apple TV, and then you might be then later on watching it on your phone or watching it on your iPad. You can see from your personal consumer behavior. Now, the fact that when you're at home, you're a consumer as well. So for longer events, for longish events going beyond 2 to 3 hours, typically more than a day, the mobile app is almost essential to boost participation in the virtual event. And this is another example of how personalized notifications can really help you drive the engagement, even though you might be at home or in one place. And this we discussed briefly. Including entertainment is a great strategy. It does not mean that you have to spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars or pounds in getting that. There are a lot of aggregator websites where entertainers do offer small gigs at a reasonable cost. And I think if you're trying to get your employee town hall, or if you're trying to get your customers for your annual show, this is a great example. This is a great recommended feature for your virtual event. And finally, I'm sorry to rush very quickly because we're sort of out of time, and we want to make sure you can see some of the features live as well, is the fact that you do need a reminders engine. What we've seen is that having the reminders engine to follow up, to have a sort of a cadence, not only for making them register, but even for a long event, for a 3-day event, for a 2-day event, telling them that, hey, you've not been to the expo floor. Why don't you go to the expo floor? Hey, you've not been to, these were your favorite speakers and they are just about to come in. And hey, you've not spoken to anybody in the round table. Why don't you make 5 new connections today, right? So these kind of things, you need to remind them. And we see that people coming back and they're very thankful that they were reminded about the event. So I think having some form of a cadence is really useful. So very quickly, let me go back in a descending order. So the reminders engine, automating the reminders and follow up, having an include entertainment. Tip 8, do not shy away from using a mobile app. It might seem counterintuitive to you, especially if you know that your audience is in one place. But when you have a long event, it's almost essential to make sure you drive in their engagement. Make sure you have the ability to create a personalized agenda. It creates context. It creates meaning for each employee or customer or attendee as they go. Have video capability for your exhibitors. You want to have them the same experience of talking to the expo staff, not just downloading brochures, not just exchanging business cards, because that's just information, and you can also do that traditionally from the website. But you must engage them using video. Again, have a contextual lobby. You can either have something like this, which is a bespoke lobby, or a standard lobby like this. And again, simulated video, you need to understand which videos you want on demand and which videos you want, because the fact that when you have simulated live, it creates a sense of urgency, sense of FOMO for people that they must attend. And what we've seen from stats is that people are more inclined to watch a live video versus on demand. So it's a great strategy to drive in traffic. And again, a 2.5D sort of experience on the lobby is way better than having just a listing of exhibitors. And finally, roundtables. I would say this is the heart. This is the heart of making it useful for driving new connections, for driving attendee to attendee and attendee to speaker engagement. And finally, this is what you're seeing right now. So this is just one of the 10 things that are recommended. So with that, Aditi, I hope I'm not taking too much time. Over to you.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you so much. I think we've covered most of what we wanted to have on the show in terms of the top 10 tips. I think we've also covered a lot in terms of how the platform can help the organizers, then producers and organizers, and at the end of the day also has given bits and pieces to your audience, people who are going to come on board as attendees. I think they also can have a clear understanding of what we're trying to do here. So guys, thank you so much for all the feedback so far and insights. I think the next step, Sid, would be to take this up on the roundtable. So I would ask all the attendees to maybe, if they can join the roundtable, and they can join any of the table. There are 5 to 6 tables on the roundtable of this particular event, and they can join any table. Maybe they can start with the first table, the CEO table. Maybe we can have all of the attendees there. And Claire, please join us on the table, and let's see if there are any questions, and we can address those over there itself.
Thanks.
Aditi, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to jump off the call because I've got another client meeting. So I'm going to leave your round tables. But thank you all very much for the opportunity to be on this. It's been really great chatting to you. And yeah, have fun on your round tables.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much. It was very good talking to you. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye-bye.